You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
It is Mental Health Monday, and I have a conundrum here. I actually have coffee this morning.
What?
And because I have coffee in one hand,
Monday.
I can't run all the controls because I have coffee in one hand. This is a true dilemma.
That is a real problem.
It is. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu. I don't think it's a
uncommon.
mental health. Oh, sorry. Live uncommon. Sorry, didn't
You
mean to
have
interrupt
coffee,
you.
man.
I have coffee.
It's a happy day.
It is. It's quite the dilemma, but I don't think it's a mental health dilemma. So it's time to check in with Deaconess Heidi Goehmann for Mental Health Monday. Good morning, Heidi.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. What coffee do you have this morning?
My standard Sumatra. It's my favorite every time. It's the best.
Sarah?
Ethiopian, it's my favorite. Also the best.
I have no idea where mine came from. It came out of a bag, so.
Oh, well, I mean, it's still coffee. It works.
It's still coffee, sure. All right, what are we digging into for Mental Health Monday today? We're looking at initiative, correct? We're in our initiative series, right?
Yeah, that's true. The whole month of October, we were talking initiative, especially initiative and how it interacts with guilt and shame, and that those leadership capabilities that God has built into each of us that might look different from person to person, some commonalities across the board in what we call leadership, but at the same time, like seeing that individualized process in each of us. And so today we're going to talk about building initiative, like building it up. And next week, we'll finish the series with our roadblocks to initiative, what kind of gets in the way of those things. And so you can find more on the overview of what initiative is and definitions and all that good stuff at HeidiGoehmann.com all through the month. And today at noon, I'll be live on my Facebook page, Heidi Goehmann Writes, with Dr. Kim Markshausen, another notable learned Lutheran. And she joins me each month to talk about each of these things as well from her own different developmental theory perspectives that she has engaged in her education. And so today we're talking about moral development and Piaget and Kohlberg. And if that sounds boring to you all, I promise it isn't. Like we do make it interesting if it sounds just super interesting because you're into kind of dorky theories and stuff like that as we are, then you'll surely enjoy yourself as well. So that's at noon Central Standard Time on my Facebook page. So building initiative. Are you guys ready to build some initiative today?
Yes.
Sure.
The answer is absolutely.
Yes, there should not be a delay when talking about initiative.
Initiative,
Oh, boy.
please. Okay, so first you start by answering the question. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, we've talked about this, and I feel like I really appreciate each of you guys like sharing your examples. And so we'll have some of those examples in just a minute. But first, let's start with building initiative as a child, and then we'll talk about building initiative as an adult. Though there's a lot of overlap in those things. As you guys know, we're talking through development this year because I really believe that, and I think this is true in Psalm 139 in particular, God's knitting us in the womb. It happens in these kind of stages as we grow throughout our life. But at the same time, I think they kind of repeat on each other too. I don't think we just, grow very statically through those stages. I think we often go back and learn something about a certain stage and then move back through again. And so that's my own developmental theory that's untested and slightly anecdotal, if you will. But building initiative as a child, taking a step out in front is a lot of what that looks like taking a step forward, if you will, tiny steps. It doesn't seem like much initiative to ask someone to play with you. It doesn't seem like a lot of initiative to raise your hand in class or to read aloud or to ask someone to read a book to you or whatever to get your needs met. But that's initiative. And we start to see it from the youngest ages, a baby crying to to say loudly, I need some help, is initiative to some degree. And then we see how that is built throughout early childhood. And I would say a lot of the work of initiative in like the school aged years, and then especially in young adulthood and throughout our lives, is learning tact and timing in our initiative. Like those two things. I remember my mom when I was 12 trying to teach me tact and the concept of tact, and that you might have the right thing to say, but when you say it and how you say it is a big deal. And that was because I sounded like a 12-year-old American. Everything came out really blunt, and it didn't really land with a lot of compassion that I was feeling internally. And so we're building initiative by teaching kids what compassion looks like when we talk, but then also how they say things, reframing things and being like, wow, I really like that thought. I might say it this way so that that person can hear. And, I think it's funny to talk to your 2-year-old like that, but it's not at the end of the day. They are smart little creatures that God has built big brains inside. And so I definitely believe in using large words, building vocabulary in kids, and being honest and upfront with them about how we say things really early and often, if you will, and then when we say things. If you think about the fact that, when mom's on the phone, when dad is just got home, or when he's on the phone or whatever's happening, that I need 3 more minutes and I'll be done and I'll be ready for this conversation. That's helping them learn that healthy initiative that includes humility, like we talked about in our last segment. So any questions on tact or timeliness? Any thoughts on that, Sarah and Andy?
That's always something that I feel like everyone can always be growing in.
Even as an adult, I still wrestle with it and am always learning.
Maybe even more so as an adult, because I feel like as you get older, right, you stop caring about what people think immediately. So maybe tact is even more important as you get older.
Wow, I hadn't
with more
thought about
snark.
that. Okay. Right. Oh my gosh. So we go through like the sarcasm stage of life where it just becomes the way we speak, right? And some of us have a hard time maybe growing out of that. Right.
I have not grown out of that yet.
No, right? And it has its place, but learning how that doesn't land sometimes, and neurodiversity in particular, like there's whole populations that don't understand sarcasm, or that sarcasm is their love language. Like they need it, for us to interact. And so just being aware of those things. And then also, like you said, so this kind of proves my point about how development kind of circles in on itself again and again in the way that God has created us, like not to be stagnant on purpose, is that you can kind of see that as we get older, 65 plus, 70, 80, you do start to care a little less about what comes out of your mouth. And part of that is neurobiological. There's a lot of research in neuroscience about different switches that kind of turn off that usually give us a little pause before we speak. And so we can appreciate that as both the brokenness of the world, but also the confidence to be ourselves. And then also learning continuously, like you just said, oh, maybe I should say that different, or maybe I should interact a little bit differently. That's where the guilt section of initiative and guilt comes in, being able to look at where I need to grow, but have that movement-oriented guilt instead of shame, where I can say, oh my goodness, that did not come out right. I'm sorry. Bringing it before God, having confession with him about the way our mouths work and the way our brains work sometimes, but not letting it sit there, not having that shame of, I can't have initiative again. Like I can't step forward again because I said the wrong thing. And kids get real blocked up in this, and we'll talk about this with roadblocks, but I think that shame is real when we don't talk to kids honestly about, wow, I don't think that really landed the way you wanted it to with your friend. Can we talk about that? Like, what were you trying to say? Those are things that build initiative when we have the back end conversation with kids. Those wraparound conversations where we help lead them in the beginning, let them go, explore, do their thing, but then also check back in with them to give them a safe space to really process and debrief their experiences in life. That is good initiative building. That's good initiative building. So a couple more things that build initiative in children are balance balancing authority as well as compassion. And so, people like myself who have a lot of voice and a lot of words, want to jump into initiative. There's some of us have like a very natural acumen for taking those steps forward, and learning that we are not the only one capable, first of all, is important, that we are in fact useful, and that God has given us many gifts, but that we're also dispensable, that we're small and God is big and he can do things without us. Those are all really powerful things. And we kind of figure out how we shape that for individual children that we teach and as we parent, but also giving them compassion for themselves. That is movement-oriented guilt at its best, is self-compassion, saying, wow, I didn't say that right, or wow, that leading didn't go well, or ooh, I maybe should have given some space for that person who didn't want to play with me, or whatever. Having compassion for others and where they're coming from is super important. And I would say we teach that 50% of the time in the church. But I think self-compassion is a topic we don't talk about in the church that we need more of. And if it helps, we can contextualize that as Christ compassion, because when Christ looks at you, he sees compassion. He doesn't see sin and guilt. He sees what he has done. And I think it's a battle in life to stand in that and believe it. And it's okay to wrestle with it. That's part of Christ's compassion. But to have it internally is really important, instead of it just be an external idea that we engage with. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah, it does.
Good. Yeah. I just got to do a double check sometimes.
Yeah. Why don't we continue? We need to take a quick break. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm going to take the initiative to lead us into the break. How's that?
I love it. You do that. You do you.
It is Mental Health Monday. We're talking with Deaconess Heidi Goehmann on initiative today. We've talked about children. Are we going to talk about adults next? Is that right?
We are going to talk about adults next. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very good. I could use some help. You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
On this Monday, October 19th, 2020, KFUO Radio thanks our day sponsors, John and Janet Rao of St. Charles, Missouri, as they give thanks for the blessing of marriage. John and Janet made a gift to KFUO Radio in celebration of their 45th wedding anniversary today. They are thankful to the Lord for bringing them together and blessing them greatly. Thank you, John and Janet Rao, for helping us share the gospel and for being today's KFUO day sponsors.
Many educational institutions are governed by the whims of culture and are increasingly hostile to the Word of God. In contrast, Faith Lutheran School in Plano, Texas provides classical Lutheran education rooted in God's Word for students preschool through grade 12. We equip students to stand firm in the faith through solid education focused on wisdom and virtue. We offer in-person instruction as well as live online classes for remote learning. To learn more about classical Lutheran education at Faith Plano, visit flsplano.org. That's flsplano.org.
This has been quite a year, a lot of uncertainty. But there is one thing you can count on if you're a member of the Concordia plans. Your benefits through the Concordia plans are always with you to help keep you physically, emotionally, and financially healthy. Protect yourself and your family by signing up for your healthcare benefits, along with additional insurance and saving for retirement. Choose your 2021 benefits November 2nd through the 20th at concordiaplans.org/myaccount.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
It is Mental Health Monday with Deaconess Heidi Goehmann, talking initiative today. All right, so we've discussed initiative as a child. Let's talk about building initiative as an adult. I certainly can use some help, so thanks.
Oh, yeah. You guys will love this part because I know you're lifelong learners. Like, that's one of your jams. And so, building initiative as an adult has a lot to do with learning and continuing to learn and grow. You know, my series on the website this year is called Always Growing, Lifespan Development. The fact that we're not stuck just in this one spot, instead that God created us to continuously growing. And I think that's one reason in Psalm 139, he says, he talks about, knowing us and wanting to know us more, and us wanting to know him more and his thoughts more, even though he already knows all of us. Because even God himself is that growth oriented, which is, I don't know, it's mind blowing. It's a huge mystery of God. So let's consider then how we learn as adults. Like, how do we move forward? So one thing is independent learning, maybe reading, maybe watching videos. That can be a course that you take, something formal, or it might be kind of informal, like signing up for a continuing education thing at your community college, or going to a library program, or going to Bible study at church, or having a group of people at your house who, learns a certain task or skill together, or talks or has a discussion group. Those are all ways that we learn as adults. Am I missing some? Can you think of some off the top of your head, you guys, that I kind of haven't brought up, like ways we learn?
I mean, community and with friends and with coworkers, especially too.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Like wherever our like employment lies, or different vocational learning, that is most certainly true. Yeah, that's really good. The other thing that builds initiatives as an adult, and so, okay, I think we're pretty good at the learning in Lutheranism. we like us some learning. For the most part, we're a thinking church, if you will. However, one part we're not great at, we are sometimes, but I think we could work on is community. And you just brought that up. So relationships is one way we build initiative as an adult. So we spend time together, and, think about the initiative or the leadership it takes to walk up to somebody and say, hey, how was that cancer treatment? Like that, I know that can be really hard. That takes initiative to step out, to step forward, and offer a space for someone to share. It takes initiative to say, hey, I'll teach some Sunday school and talk to little kids. It takes initiative to do so many things relationally, to tell our spouse, I'm a little concerned about this segment of our finances. That's initiative. And so all these relational things that are initiative, I think, could take more attention from us, if you will, instead of avoiding it. I hope that it helps people formulate it in the concept that they're building something. They're building a skill. They're building that internal initiative that God has intended for us, always in humility and compassion, like we said. Then there's also community doing. And so we're also okay at this, I think, whereas like community just being in relationship is harder for us. But community doing is kind of that service aspect that builds initiative. When we see a need and we desire to do something about it, that's an important part of initiative that we engage in as adults. The thing is, I hope as I say all this, you guys still hear that these are things that kids are capable of, because I think that's one way that we tamp initiative down, is that we believe that these are specific to, when I'm 40, then I'll be capable or something. And it doesn't really work like that. Initiative isn't locked into our secular ideas of when and where we can do things. Instead, God, in his mercy, gives what we need when we need it. And that's part of our belief in the Holy Spirit, who calls, gathers, and enlightens. And so I think experiences and exploration go into this. When we work with a team of people, we learn things from each other, and that builds initiative and how we work in committees and in informal teams. Traveling builds initiative, because we have to, I think about when I went to visit my friend Deaconess Kim Biltman in Germany, and I had to get myself off a plane in Berlin, by myself on a train, on multiple buses to get to a train, to get to Wittenberg, to meet Kim, who's fluent in German, right? And so that initiative that it took for that trip, I did not think I was capable of. When I realized I had to get off this plane and find a bus and then switch buses and then also lug this giant bag around and then find the right train and then whoops, bought the wrong ticket, have to trade that in, all of that stuff. But then when I was done, I felt so capable. I'm like, oh, I can tackle the next adventure. That's how God works initiative in us, I think, is through those different experiences. And then also that connection I had with Kim was a safe place to land in. So it didn't feel as scary, as off-putting to move forward, because I knew at the end of the day, I would see Kim's face and Kim's smile, and we would have these adventures together. I think that goes a long way in building initiative, is having those people to do this with. So I'll ask the question. I also had written down mentors and just having conversations, build initiative, and then also identifying expectations and proactively deciding to meet them or decline them. And that is part of the freedom of Christ, that we live in expectation and being able to move in our relationships with expectations, but also being able to say, no, thank you. I don't need to meet everyone on Facebook's expectation of me. That's not my jam. I don't need to meet everybody's expectation of me, even at work. Instead, being able to evaluate those things and what is true and good in them and what is sent by God and what is not. That's part of initiative. So the question I have for you guys before we run out of time, because I'm just talking, is what leadership skills have you learned from a class? Or what do you think you've learned from a mentor? Let's talk about those two things first. I also have an experience down, but let's start with class. What do you think you've learned from a class, you guys?
Oh man, all of my examples are from experiences.
We could start on the reverse end. Sarah's switching it up. Take control, Sarah. There you go. Take initiative.
Just trying to think through this stuff. Yeah. Oh man. I think most of my examples, several of them that I can think of, all come from experiences in the workplace, having bosses or people, in charge, I guess, of what I'm doing, who believe in me and who are like, here, take this project, you can do this. And that, and maybe this is, youngest child syndrome, but being able to have somebody who sees that I have the ability to do something. And that has taught me, how to be in front of groups of people. As an introvert, that it can be terrifying, but be in front of groups of people and lead them, or organize an event, or do things like that. The other thing is working in retail. As an introvert who does not like to talk to people, like say the first word to people, that taught me immense amount of life skills of how to take that initiative to just step forward and say, hey, how can I help you? That was huge.
Huge.
But I
really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. But having several people along the way who told me I could do something, and they saw that skill. I guess that falls under mentored then. I'll throw that one out there. Someone in a business district. I was a 21-year-old that didn't know anything about business, but they told me I could lead a business district, so I did. But that kind of high leadership level was so critical. Just having other people recognize those skills.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I think about, I worked at Taco Bell as a teenager, and easily one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. Also, so many skills that I've learned from that job that I don't think I could have learned in my deaconess classes, as valuable as they were. All those things have a place in our life. And I really like how you brought attention to all those different realms. And I do think, as you bring up about mentors, they can last for a whole lifetime. Maybe you have someone for a lifetime, but often they last for a season. And that's okay. That's the way friendship is too. I think that's the nature of a lot of relationships is, a moment, a season, or a lifetime. Those are a lot of the three realms, if you will, timelines that friendship happen. And so being able to be open to when a mentor kind of comes into your life and being willing to listen, as well as engage in their belief in you, that's a real thing. So that's a credit to you that you also listened and took their, that's an act of humility to believe what someone says that you're capable of. That's awesome. How about you, Andy?
This time of year makes me think of here in the Midwest. Typically, there are a lot of like sausage suppers at churches and like big dinners at churches, and those take a lot of labor for those events to happen. Everything from the people cooking the food to, setting up and cleaning tables and taking down all those things. And I remember as a student in like middle school, high school, helping with one of those meals, and just how some of the older members just helped me learn how to do my job for that day. And they were so patient and willing to teach me how to do it. And just taking time, I don't know, it was meaningful to me that an older member of the congregation was interested in helping me learn how to do something and entrusting me with some responsibility too. It wasn't something really significant, like I wasn't leading a Bible study or something like that. I was cleaning off tables at a sausage supper, but still it was meaningful to me as a kid to have that opportunity with an older member of the congregation that I might not normally interact with on that kind of level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as churches, we're always balancing for our youth in particular, these two places of initiative of both service, but then also giving them more. And so I love what you're saying, like that there is value in someone handing you the ladle and being like, okay, you greet people and you say like, oh, would you like some German potato salad or whatever? That's a moment in relationship that can go a long way in building something else. We call that connection. And then that can lead to something bigger called community. But I also think the challenge for churches is to do that alone, but then also give youth the opportunity to have a voice, which we're going to talk about that voice piece a lot next week when we talk about roadblocks to initiative and the benefits of building initiative. Why in the world do we want to remove these roadblocks? And a lot of it has to be with what you're talking about, just having those relationships and what they can do in our lives beyond just skills. So I really appreciate that. Thanks, you guys, for all your participation, as always.
Thank you. Find more at HeidiGoehmann.com. Heidi, have a great week. Thanks so much.
Thanks. See you next week.
I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
KFUO Radio. Visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.